GAC. P-34, 1943. 1943. 1943. 27,000 feet above Foggia, Italy. The twin-boom silhouette appears first as a speck, then resolves into the distinctive shape every Luftwaffe pilot knows, the Lockheed P-38 Lightning. Oberleutnant Heinrich Müller banks his Bf-109 slightly watching the American aircraft cruise past. It's alone. No fighter escort, no formation. Just one Lightning, flying straight and level, easy prey. Müller considers attacking. At this altitude he holds every advantage. His Messerschmitt is lighter, more maneuverable, and the P-38 appears completely oblivious to his presence. But something stops him. The Lightning isn't carrying drop tanks. Its gun ports appear sealed, and it's flying too high too deliberately. Reconnaissance Müller mutters to himself. He watches the American aircraft continue east, heading deeper over Italy, probably taking pictures of the Foggia airfields. Let him. What difference could a few photographs make? Müller returns to his patrol pattern. 27,000 feet below him at the complex of airfields surrounding Foggia, hundreds of Axis aircraft sit in neat rows. Foggia, hundreds of Axis aircraft sit in neat rows. Foggia, hundreds of Axis aircraft sit in neat rows. Viv U-190s, Bf-109s, Ju U-190s, Obrive U, Jamak, bombers, Ju U-52 transports. Mochern Ju Max of U-190s mess. Satya Sha 2 and Ju Maxis Bayan. Jokia Sinch and Juza Kin Natural Drams. Inside the cockpit of F-4 Lightning 42-12994, First Lieutenant James Harrington concentrates on keeping his aircraft absolutely level. No sudden movements. No banking turns that might blur the photographs. His hands rest lightly on the control yoke. Outside, the Allison engines produce their characteristic high-pitched whine. 1,200 horsepower per side driving counter-rotating propellers that give the P-38 its distinctive sound. But Harrington's Lightning is different from the fighters his squadron mates fly. Where armed P-38s carry a 20mm cannon and 450 caliber machine guns in the nose, Harrington's F-4 carries 5 cameras. K-17s for vertical shots. Bayers and Sarin mates Hay and Wise. K-years Hay and Wise. Bayers and Sarin mates Hay and Wise. Kilometers and Sarin mates. We're pounding south. No ammunition, no way to defend himself if attacked. His only defense is altitude and speed. Stay high, stay fast, and if intercepted, push the throttles forward and run. The weight savings from removing the guns gave him extra fuel capacity and slightly better performance. But it's a poor trade when enemy fighters appear on your tail. Harrington checks his instruments. Altitude 27,000 feet. Airspeed 285 miles per hour. Positioned directly over the main Foggia complex. He trips the camera controls. Below him, the shutters begin clicking. Click, click. It's. Photograph captures a section of the airfield. Hell make multiple passes overlapping the images to create a complete mosaic. The photo interpreters back at base can then study every detail. Aircraft positions. Aircraft types. Flak emplacements. Fuel dumps. Hangars. Repair facilities. Everything the bombers would need to know. A glint of sunlight catches Harrington's eye. He glances left and sees the Bf-109 perhaps a mile away, slightly above him. His heart rate accelerates. The Messerschmitt holds its position. Watching. Evaluating. Harrington's thumb hovers over the throttle controls, ready to firewall them if the German turns toward him. But the Bf-109 doesn't attack. It simply continues its patrol, eventually turning away. Harrington exhales slowly. The cameras keep clicking. The reconnaissance mission had been conceived months earlier when someone in Allied intelligence realized that the fastest way to know what you're bombing is to photograph it first. First Lieutenant Karl Polivka pioneered the concept in the Pacific. An ex-lumberjack from a Russian-Czech immigrant family, Polivka had earned his wings in the late 1930s and brought with him a burning hatred for everything the Axis represented. When the 8th Photo Reconnaissance Squadron formed in February 1942, Polivka took command. He had exactly 4 F-4 Lightnings and a handful of pilots. For months, Polivka flew missions that should have been suicide. Over Rabaul, where the Imperial Japanese Navy was gathering its fleet. Over Wewak, where Zero fighters swarmed like angry hornets. Over New Britain, where the jungle below offered no safe landing if he got shot down. Legend says that during one mission over Rabaul, Polivka completed his photo runs with one engine shot out, then outran the pursuing Zeros with such skillful maneuvering that one of the Japanese fighters stalled and crashed into the sea trying to follow him. Whether the story is true or not, Polivka became the standard. The premier American photo reconnaissance ace of the war. The man who proved that unarmed aircraft flown by brave pilots could gather intelligence no spy network could match. His philosophy was simple: fly high, fly fast, and bring back the pictures. Now in the Mediterranean theater, that same philosophy was being applied over Italy. Every major target received a reconnaissance mission before the bombers arrived. Sometimes days before. Sometimes, as with Foggia, less than 24 hours. The Germans knew the Americans were taking pictures. They just didn't understand what those pictures meant. Foggia Airfield Complex. Evening, August 24, 1943. Hauptmann Klaus Bauer walks between the rows of parked aircraft conducting his evening inspection. Everything is in order. Mechanics are buttoning up the cowlings on 3-5-1943. The setting sun paints the Apennine Mountains orange and gold to the west. Bauer stops beside his own Bf-109 and lights a cigarette. Tomorrow will bring another day of combat. The Allies are clearly preparing for something, an invasion of southern Italy most likely. The reconnaissance flights have increased, more bombers, more fighters, but here at Foggia they are strong. The complex includes 7 major airfields and numerous satellite strips. Hundreds of aircraft, thousands of men, heavy flak batteries protecting every approach, and veteran pilots, men who've fought in North Africa, over Malta, across the Mediterranean. Let the Americans come. Herr Hauptmann. Bauer turns to see Lieutenant Weber approaching, grinning. Did you see the photo blitz today? Weber asks. One of their unarmed Lightnings cruising over at high altitude. Miller spotted it but didn't bother shooting it down. Why waste the ammunition? Bauer replies. He takes a drag on his cigarette. Let them take all the pictures they want. What are they going to do? Show us the photos? Weber laughs. Exactly. Besides, those reconnaissance Lightnings are easy kills if we actually wanted them. Kurt Bühligen said the P-38 is the easiest Allied fighter to down in this theater. This is true. Bühligen is an ace with 13 confirmed P-38 kills. And Franz Schiess, God rest his soul, killed just last month, had claimed an astonishing 17 Lightnings before his death. 17. The P-38 looks dangerous with its twin engines and twin booms, but German pilots have found its weaknesses. Poor roll rate at lower speeds. The tendency to dive too fast and suffer compressibility problems. Pilots who panic and try to turn with Messerschmitts instead of using their superior speed. And the unarmed reconnaissance variants, even weaker. They can't fight back. All they can do is run. I heard the Americans think those twin engines make them safer, Weber continues. But all it means is they have twice as many things to catch fire. More laughter. Bauer finishes his cigarette and crushes it underfoot. Get some rest, Weber. Tomorrow we fly. As the young pilot walks away, Bauer takes one last look at the rows of aircraft. FW-190s, BF-109s, Ju-88 bombers, ready to strike Allied shipping. Ju-52 transports, ready to move supplies. All of them sitting in the open. No need for dispersion or camouflage. The Foggia complex is too large to hide, and the defenses too strong to worry about attack. The Americans can take all the pictures they want. It won't matter. But there's something the Germans don't know about the P-38. Something that's feeding their overconfidence. When a Lightning pilot suddenly advances the throttles in an emergency, say to escape an attacking fighter, the wastegates on both Allison engines emit a spectacular display of dark smoke and flame. From behind it, looks exactly like the aircraft has been mortally hit. German pilots see the smoke, see the apparent flames, watch the Lightning pull away at high speed, and assume they've scored a kill. They claim the victory. They celebrate. They paint another mark on their aircraft. The P-38 pilot lands back at base unharmed, ready to fly again tomorrow. This phenomenon affects the Luftwaffe's entire perception of the Lightning. They believe they're shooting down far more P-38s than they actually are. They believe the aircraft is vulnerable. They believe, incorrectly, that the Lightning is easy prey. Franz Schiess claimed 17 P-38 kills before his death. How many of those claims were Lightnings belching smoke while escaping at full throttle? Kurt Bühligen has 13 claimed P-38 kills. How many were actually destroyed? The truth is somewhere in the gap between perception and reality. And that gap is about to cost the Luftwaffe dearly. Because while the Germans are congratulating themselves on their superiority, the Americans are learning, studying, planning, and photographing. Allied headquarters, Algiers, North Africa. Late evening, August 24, 1943. Lieutenant Colonel George McNichol spreads the still wet photographs across the briefing table. Fresh from the developing room, they smell of chemicals. Water droplets still cling to the edges. But the images are crystal clear. "Look at this," McNichol says to the assembled intelligence officers. They're not even trying to hide. The photographs show everything. Foggia main airfield. Satellite airfield, number 3. Number 7, no mine, every one of them packed with aircraft. The intelligence officers crowd around, pointing at specific details. "Count them," one officer says. "I see at least 40 aircraft at number 7 alone. And they're parked in neat rows," another adds. "Like they're at an air show." McNichol studies the photos with a critical eye. As the deputy commander of the 82nd Fighter Group, transferred from the South Pacific to lead operations in the Mediterranean, he knows the Lightning, knows its strengths and weaknesses, knows what it can do. And looking at these photographs, he knows exactly what needs to happen next. "We can hit this," McNichol says quietly. The room falls silent. "With what?" an intelligence officer asks. "Heavy bombers? They'll see them coming from 50 miles away." "No," McNichol replies. "With P-38s. Flying low. At wave-top height. Complete surprise." He traces a route on the map. "We take off at dawn. 3 fighter groups. The 82nd, the 1st, and part of the 14th. More than 150 aircraft. We fly over the Mediterranean at less than 100 feet. Strict radio silence. Then we come up the coast here." His finger follows the Gulf of Manfredonia. "And turn west toward Foggia. They'll hear you coming," an officer protests. "Not until we're right on top of them. We'll be at 20 feet off the ground, doing over 300 miles per hour. By the time they hear the engines, we'll already be shooting." McNichol taps the photographs. "These pictures tell us exactly where to strike. We assign each squadron to a specific airfield. No confusion. No. He looks up at the assembled officers. And after we're done strafing, the heavy bombers can finish the job. Silence. Then one of the intelligence officers speaks up. This could work. This could actually work. McNichol nods. Get me approval from command. I want to brief the pilots at 0400 hours. Take off at 0630. That's tomorrow morning. The photographs are from today. The Germans know we've been overhead. They'll assume we need days or weeks to plan an attack. We hit them tomorrow while they're still congratulating themselves on having nothing to fear from a few reconnaissance flights. One of the intelligence officers picks up a photograph studying the neat rows of German and Italian aircraft. They have no idea what's coming, he says softly. McNichol allows himself a small smile. That's the point. Allied Air Base, North Africa. 0400 hours. August 25, 1943. The briefing room is packed. Pilots from 3 different P-38 fighter groups, the 82nd, 1st, and 14th, crowd into every available space. Some sit in chairs. Others lean against walls. A few sit on the floor. The room smells of coffee, cigarettes, and nervous sweat. Lieutenant Colonel McNichol stands at the front beside a large map of Italy. Reconnaissance photographs are pinned to boards behind him. Gentlemen, he begins. At 0630 hours this morning, we're going to destroy the Foggia airfield complex. Murmurs ripple through the room. McNichol raises his hand for silence. Yesterday, one of our F-4s photographed every major airfield in the Foggia area. What we found is a target of opportunity. Hundreds of enemy aircraft parked in the open, defended by flak but not expecting an attack. He points to the map. Here is how we do it. We take off as 3 separate groups and rendezvous over the Gulf of Tunis. Then we fly in formation at less than 100 feet above the water. Strict radio silence. No breaking formation, at less than 100 feet above the water. Strict radio silence. No breaking formation. No chatter. A pilot in the front row raises his hand. Want they pick us up on radar? Flying that low? Unlikely. And even if they do, they'll assume we're heading somewhere else. We'll be 60 miles out to sea then. We'll turn and come straight up the Italian coast. McNichol traces the route with his finger. We fly north along the Gulf of Manfredonia, staying low. When we're about 20 miles south of Foggia, we turn west. That's when we climb, just enough to attack from 20 feet off the ground. He points to the photographs. Each squadron has been assigned a specific airfield. The 97th and 96th will hit satellite number 7. The 95th takes number 3. A small force hits number 9. Other squadrons from the 1st and 14th groups will take the remaining fields. Second Lieutenant Sammy McGuffin, 97th Fighter Squadron, studies the photographs from his seat near the back. He can see the aircraft parked in neat rows. Ju-88 bombers. FW-190 fighters. Easy targets if, and this is a big if, they actually achieve surprise. What about flak? Someone asks. It will be heavy once they realize we're there. That's why speed is essential. We come in fast, we hit hard, we get out. 1 or 2 passes maximum. Don't hang around to admire your work. McNichol pauses, making eye contact with pilots throughout the room. The Germans think reconnaissance flights are harmless. They've been watching unarmed F-4s cruise over their airfields for weeks. They assume we're just gathering information for some future operation. They have no idea that the information we gathered yesterday is going to be used today. He taps the photograph of Foggia, Maine. Surprise is our greatest weapon. We're going to use it. First Lieutenant Tom Hodgson, 95th Fighter Squadron, walks out of the briefing into the pre-dawn darkness. His P-38G waits on the flight line, barely visible in the gloom. Has flown 49 missions. This will be his 50th. 50 missions means he can go home. 50 missions means has beaten the odds. 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 50 missions means has survived. But first he has to survive mission 50. Hodgson's crew chief, Sergeant Eddie Morrison, is already performing the pre-flight inspection. He looks up as Hodgson approaches. "Morning, Lieutenant. Chaise ready to go." "Thanks, Eddie." Hodgson runs his hand along the cowling of the left engine. The metal is cool to the touch. In a few minutes these engines will be screaming at full power, pushing his Lightning toward Italy at 300 miles per hour. All around him the base is waking up. Pilots walking to their aircraft. Crew chiefs making final checks. Fuel trucks making last-minute top-offs. 150 P-38s preparing to launch. Hodgson climbs into his cockpit and begins his own pre-flight routine. Check the controls. Check the instruments. Check the oxygen system. Check the guns. He has 4 50 caliber machine guns and 1 20mm cannon, all concentrated in the nose. No need to lead the target. Just point the nose where you want the bullets to go. Perfect for strafing. The sun hasn't risen yet, but the eastern horizon is beginning to lighten. Hodgson can make out the silhouettes of other P-38s in the growing light. "You ready for this?" The voice comes from his wingman, Lieutenant Pete Conley, whose aircraft is parked next to Hodgson's. "Ready as he'll ever be," Hodgson calls back. 50 missions after this, and you're done right. That's the plan. Make it a good one then. Hodgson smiles. "I intend to." Second Lieutenant Urban Stahl, 97th Fighter Squadron, sits in his cockpit, watching the minutes tick by. Has already completed his pre-flight checks. Already said a quick prayer. Already thought about what he'll write in his next letter home. Now there's nothing to do but wait. Stahl is 23 years old. He grew up in Wisconsin, where his father owned a hardware store. When the war broke out, Stahl enlisted immediately. He wanted to fly, wanted to fight, wanted to do something that mattered. Now Hez about to lead his flight on a mission to destroy German aircraft on the ground. The importance isn't lost on him. Every German plane destroyed at Foggia is one less plane that can attack Allied troops during the upcoming invasion of Italy. Every Ju-88 bomber he destroys today is one that won't be dropping bombs on American soldiers tomorrow. This matters. The radio crackles to life. All aircraft, this is lead. Start engines. Stahl reaches for the ignition switches. The Kaufman starter fires with a loud bang. The left engine coughs, catches, and roars to life. Then the right. Around him, 150 P-38s are starting their engines. The sound is incredible. 300 Allison engines producing their characteristic high-pitched scream. All aircraft taxi in sequence. One by one the Lightnings begin moving. They form a long line on the taxiway, twin-boomed silhouettes in the dawn light. Stahl checks his watch. 0625 hours. 5 minutes to take off. Meanwhile at Foggia, Hauptmann Klaus Bauer wakes to the sound of his orderly knocking on the door of his quarters. "Sir, it's 0630. You asked to be woken." Bauer sits up, rubbing sleep from his eyes. Another day. Another round of missions defending southern Italy from Allied bombers. He dresses quickly and walks outside. The August morning is already warm. It will be hot by noon. At the flight line, mechanics are performing pre-flight inspections on the Bf-109s. A fuel truck is servicing one of the FW-190s. Everything is routine. No alarms. No alerts. No indication that anything unusual is happening. Bauer walks to the operations tent and checks the status board. 4 fighters on standby alert. 8 more ready to launch on 5 minutes notice. The flak batteries are manned. Radar is operating normally. All quiet. He pours himself a cup of coffee and steps outside to watch the sunrise. Somewhere to the south beyond the horizon, beyond the range of sight and sound, 150 American P-38 Lightnings are taking off from their bases in North Africa. But Hauptmann Bauer knows nothing about this. He drinks his coffee and enjoys the morning calm. Over the Mediterranean Sea, 0730 hours. Lieutenant Colonel McNichol flies at the head of the formation, a navigator's compass wedged between his feet. This far out to sea, traditional navigation is difficult. Mess flying by dead reckoning, using time speed and heading to calculate position. Behind him, spread across several square miles of sky, more than 150 P-38s maintain formation. The formation dropped to wave-top height shortly after leaving North Africa. Now they're flying less than 100 feet above the water. At this altitude, the Mediterranean is a blue-gray blur beneath them. Whitecaps flash past. The occasional fishing boat appears and disappears in seconds. No radio transmissions. McNichol enforced strict radio discipline before takeoff. The only way this works is if they maintain complete surprise. First Lieutenant Lee Solem, 96th Fighter Squadron, flies in the middle of the formation. He can see P-38s ahead of him, behind him, to both sides. It's an impressive sight, the largest formation of Lightnings has ever seen. The noise is incredible even inside his cockpit. The high-pitched scream of 300 Allison engines is so loud it drowns out his radio. Not that it matters. Nobody's talking anyway. Solem checks his fuel gauge. They've been in the air for an hour. By his calculations, they should reach the Italian coast soon. As if reading his mind, McNichol's formation begins a gentle turn to the right. They're heading north now toward the Gulf of Manfredonia. Solem can see land ahead. Italy. Enemy territory. No turning back now. The formation continues north, hugging the coastline. Solem can see small villages. Fishing boats. A road following the shore. Then McNichol banks left and the entire formation follows. They're heading west now. Directly toward Foggia. Solem's heart rate increases. He flexes his fingers on the control yoke. Checks his gun switches. Armed and ready. 20 miles to target. The formation begins climbing. Not much. Just enough to clear any obstacles on the ground. They level off at 20 feet. 20 feet. At 300 miles per hour. One mistake, one moment of inattention, and you're a smoking hole in the ground. But there's no time for fear. Only focus. 10 miles to target. Solem can see the individual squadrons beginning to separate, each heading toward its assigned airfield. The 97th and 96th, including his own flight, are breaking off toward satellite number 7, 5 miles. Through his windscreen, Solem can see buildings, hangars, aircraft. The target, 3 miles. The sound of 150 P-38s is now audible even from the ground. A rising scream of engines approaching at 300 miles per hour. 1 mile. Hauptmann Klaus Bauer is walking back from the operations tent when he hears it. At first he thinks it's thunder, but the sky is clear. No storms. Then he realizes what he's hearing. Engines. Lots of engines. Aircraft engines. He turns toward the sound, scanning the southern horizon. Nothing. The sound is getting louder. Much louder. And then he sees them. Dark shapes skimming the ground. Coming straight toward the airfield. Dozens of them. Twin booms. Twin engines. P-38 Lightnings. Alarm. Bauer screams. Alarm. Alarm. But it's too late. The first P-38s are already over the airfield. Lieutenant Colonel McNichol leads the 97th and 96th Fighter Squadrons over satellite airfield number 7 at 20 feet and 310 miles per hour. The surprise is complete. Germans on the ground are running, pointing, diving for cover. A fuel truck tries to accelerate away and tips over, spilling aviation gasoline across the taxiway. McNichol lines up on an FW-190 parked in the middle of the field. His thumb presses the firing button. The 20mm cannon hammers. 450 caliber machine guns join in. Tracers streak toward the Focke-Wulf. The first rounds hit the cowling. The second burst hits the cockpit. The third burst hits the fuel tank. The Focke-Wulf 190 explodes in a ball of orange. McNichol pulls up and banks hard left. Through his mirrors he can see other P-38s making their runs. Aircraft exploding. Fuel fires spreading. Germans running for their lives. He swings around for a second pass. Second Lieutenant Sammy McGuffin spots a Macchi C-22-2 parked near a hangar. The Italian fighter is painted in desert camouflage, probably recently arrived from North Africa. It won't be going back. McGuffin centers the C-22 in his gun sight and fires. The P-38's concentrated nose armament tears the Italian fighter apart. The wings shred. The fuselage splits. The entire aircraft seems to disintegrate under the stream of shells and bullets. McGuffin pulls up looking for another target. There. A Ju-52 transport. Big, slow, unmistakable. He swings toward it, but First Lieutenant Lee Salem's P-38 is already there. Salem's guns light up. The Ju-52's 3 engines explode one after another. Fuel spills from ruptured tanks. Fire engulfs the entire transport. But as Salem pulls up, tracer fire streaks past his canopy. The Germans have gotten the flak guns operational. Salem feels his P-38 shudder. Something hits the right boom. Then something else hits near the tail. Warning lights flash on his instrument panel. Has been hit. At Satellite Airfield Number 3, First Lieutenant Tom Hodgson leads his flight in at deck height. We came in low at Satellite Number 3, Hodgson would later recall, ducking under a high-tension wire just before we hit the field. The high-tension wire flashes overhead close enough that Hodgson instinctively ducks in his cockpit, then heads over the field. A Macchi C-22 sits directly ahead. Hodgson doesn't hesitate. His guns roar. The Italian fighter erupts in flames. His wingmen are already engaging other targets. Lieutenant Guido Lucini destroys a Ju-88 bomber, then a Bf-109, then another Ju-52 transport. 3 kills in less than 90 seconds. The 95th Fighter Squadron will claim 11 aircraft destroyed on this airfield alone. But the Germans are fighting back. Flak is intensifying. 20mm shells burst in black puffs. Tracers crisscross the air. Hodgson lines up on another target, this time in the air. A Bf-109 has managed to take off and is climbing away from the field. Hodgson pulls his nose up, leads the target and fires. The Messerschmitt's right wing explodes. The fighter rolls inverted and crashes into the ground beyond the airfield perimeter. Hodgson doesn't stay to watch. Hes already banking away looking for the next target. At Satellite Airfield Number 9, Second Lieutenant Urban Stahl finds himself alone with an entire airfield full of targets. Only 4 P-38s were assigned to this field. Somehow, in the chaos of the attack, Stahl has become separated from the others. He doesn't waste the opportunity. A Ju-88 bomber sits near a hangar. Stahl's guns tear it apart. Flames erupt from the fuselage. He swings toward another Ju-88. Same result. Fire and destruction. A third Ju-88. And a fourth. In less than 2 minutes, Urban Stahl personally destroys 4 German bombers. Later, when the gun camera footage is reviewed, the intelligence officers will be amazed. 4 distinct targets. 4 distinct kills, all by one pilot in one pass. But the Germans are not going down without a fight. Major Johannes Steinhoff, Geschwader Commodore of JG-77, scrambles his Bf-109 at the first sound of engines. He doesn't bother with normal takeoff procedures. He just adds full power and lifts off gear, still retracting, heading toward the chaos. A P-38 flashes past, making a strafing run on the field Steinhoff just left. He banks hard, trying to get on its tail. The Lightning sees him coming. Smoke belches from its engines as the pilot firewalls the throttles. But Steinhoff is one of the best pilots in the Luftwaffe. He leads the target perfectly and fires. His shells hit the P-38's right boom. The lightning shudders but doesn't go down. Instead, it accelerates away, climbing at full power. Steinhoff tries to follow, but the P-38 is too fast. It disappears into the distance. He curses and swings back toward the airfields. 2 more P-38s are making strafing runs on satellite number 5. Steinhoff attacks the trailing aircraft. His guns hammer. This time his aim is perfect. The P-38's left engine explodes. The lightning rolls inverted and crashes into the ground. Steinhoff's first kill of the day. He won't be his last. Before the battle is over, Major Steinhoff will claim 3 P-38s destroyed. But 3 losses out of 150 aircraft is a small price to pay for what the Lightnings are achieving. First Lieutenant Lee Solem fights to keep his damaged P-38 under control. The hydraulic system is shot. Both booms have taken hits. The right engine is running rough, but Hes still flying, and there are still targets on the ground. He spots a Ju-52 transport trying to taxi away from the carnage. The lumbering trimotor is moving at maybe 20 miles per hour, its 3 engines straining. Easy target. Solem lines up and fires. All 4 50 caliber guns and the 20mm cannon concentrate on the Ju-52's center engine. The engine explodes. The transport slews to the left, then tips onto its nose. Fire spreads from the engine to the fuselage. Solem pulls up and heads for the rally point. His P-38 is vibrating badly. Warning lights are flashing, but the engines are still running and the controls still respond. Hell make it to Sicily. He has to. This is his 50th mission. His last mission. Hes not dying in Italy. Not today. The attack lasts 17 minutes. 17 minutes of surprise shock and devastation. When the last P-38 pulls away, the Foggia airfield complex is in ruins. Fires burn at every field. Aircraft, some whole, most in pieces, litter the grounds. Fuel dumps blaze. Ammunition cooks off with sharp cracks. Smoke rises in thick black columns visible for miles. 34 confirmed aircraft destroyed, many more damaged beyond repair. And the Lightnings are gone, racing back toward the coast at full throttle, leaving destruction in their wake. On the ground, Hauptmann Klaus Bauer stands amid the wreckage of satellite number 7 and tries to comprehend what just happened. 17 minutes ago, his airfield was operational. Dozens of aircraft ready to fly. Full fuel, full ammunition, ready for combat. Now, 6 FEP W-190s destroyed, 4 Bf-109s destroyed, 3 Ju-88s destroyed, 2 Ju-52s destroyed, an unknown number damaged, 3 fuel trucks destroyed, 1 hangar burning, the operations building riddled with bullet holes, and all of it accomplished by aircraft the Germans thought were harmless. Sir? Bauer turns to see Lieutenant Weber, his face covered in soot, his uniform torn. Status? Bauer asks. We lost at least 15 aircraft confirmed, maybe twice that many damaged, 7 men killed, 14 wounded. Bauer looks at the burning wreckage. How did they know exactly where to strike? Weber doesn't answer immediately. Then quietly, the reconnaissance flight yesterday. Of course. The unarmed P-38 that Miller had spotted. The one they'd dismissed as harmless. The one taking photographs. Those photographs had told the Americans everything. Where to strike. What to hit. How to attack. The reconnaissance flight wasn't preparation for some distant operation. It was preparation for this morning. Bauer suddenly remembers his conversation with Weber last night. Let them take all the pictures they want. What are they going to do? Show us the photos? Now he knows. They don't show you the photos. They use them. Lieutenant Colonel McNichol's P-38 crosses the Italian coast heading east back toward the Mediterranean. His fuel gauge shows half full. Plenty to make it home. Behind him, the other Lightnings are forming up. Not all of them. 5 aircraft are missing. Shot down by flak or German fighters. 5 losses out of 150 aircraft. A 3-loss rate. For what they accomplished, it's acceptable. More than acceptable. McNichol allows himself a moment of satisfaction. The mission went exactly as planned. Surprise achieved. Targets destroyed. Losses minimal. The reconnaissance photographs had been the key. Knowing exactly where to strike. Knowing exactly what would be there. Intelligence wins wars. His radio crackles. Lead, this is 2-7. I'm leaking coolant from the right engine. Don't think it'll make it across the water. McNichol recognizes the voice. Lieutenant Lee Solem, 96th Fighter Squadron. 2-7. What's your position? About 5 miles off the coast. Engine temperature is climbing. I'm going to have to put her down in Sicily. Roger. Try for the emergency strip at Camiso. Will do. 2-7 out. McNichol makes a mental note. Solem flew his 50th mission today. The lieutenant will spend tonight in Sicily instead of celebrating back at base. But Hez alive, and he completed his tour. Some pilots don't get that lucky. First Lieutenant Lee Solem nurses his damaged P-38 towards Sicily. The right engine temperature gauge is in the red. The left engine is running rough. The hydraulic system has failed completely, which means no flaps, no gear. He'll have to belly land. The emergency strip at Camiso appears ahead. A short runway carved out of a wheat field. Barely adequate for normal operations. Definitely not ideal for a belly landing. But it's what Hez got. Solem sets up his approach. No flaps means higher approach speed. No gear means he'll be sliding on the fuselage. He cuts both engines. The propellers windmill to a stop. The P-38 glides toward the runway in eerie silence. The ground rushes up. Contact. The Lightning's belly hits the dirt runway. Sparks fly. Metal screeches. Solem is thrown forward against his harness. The aircraft slides, and stops. Solem sits in the cockpit for a moment, breathing hard. Hez alive. The Lightning is destroyed, but Hez alive. He pops the canopy and climbs out. Ground crew are already running toward him. You okay, Lieutenant? Me'm. Fine. Solem looks at his aircraft. The belly is torn up. Both booms are damaged. The right engine is completely destroyed. But she got him home. This was your 50th, right? One of the crew chiefs asks. Solem nods. Yeah. That's 50. Hell of a way to finish. Solem laughs. I'll take it. He walks away from the wreckage. Hell catch a transport back to the main base tomorrow. Tonight, Hell sleep in a tent in Sicily. But Hez alive. And his war is over. 50 missions complete. Allied Headquarters, North Africa. 1400 hours, August 25, 1943. The intelligence officers are still processing the results when Lieutenant Colonel McNichol arrives for the debriefing. Preliminary counts, the chief intelligence officer says, spreading papers across the table. 34 confirmed destroyed. Maybe 20 more damaged. We're still getting reports from the pilots. McNichol studies the numbers. And our losses? 5 aircraft missing. 3 pilots confirmed killed. 2 more may have made emergency landings in friendly territory. Acceptable. More than acceptable, sir. This is one of the most successful fighter-bomber missions of the war. McNichol nods. What about Phase 2? The heavy bombers go tonight. B-17s and B-24s. They'll finish what we started. Good. The intelligence officer pauses, then adds, the Germans have to know now. They have to understand what the reconnaissance flights mean. They do, McNichol replies. But it's too late to matter. That night, 200 American heavy bombers pound the Foggia airfield complex. They drop 2.6 million pounds of high explosive on targets that are already burning. Hangars collapse. Fuel dumps explode. Aircraft that survived the morning attack are destroyed in the night. When dawn breaks on August 26, 1943, the Foggia complex has lost over 100 aircraft destroyed or damaged beyond repair. It's the single most devastating blow the Luftwaffe has suffered in the Mediterranean theater. And it all started with one unarmed F-4 Lightning taking photographs 24 hours earlier. Hauptmann Klaus Bauer stands at the window of the temporary operations center and watches the sunrise. They've been working all night trying to salvage what they can, moving undamaged aircraft to dispersed locations, covering damaged planes with camouflage nets, setting up decoys to draw future attacks away from real targets. The attitude has changed completely. No more jokes about reconnaissance flights. No more dismissive comments about unarmed Lightnings taking pictures. Orders have come down from the highest levels. All reconnaissance aircraft are to be intercepted. All of them. Armed or unarmed. Doesn't matter. Shoot them down. Because now they understand. The camera is as dangerous as the bomb. Maybe more dangerous. The photographs don't just show what's there. They show what will be destroyed tomorrow. Herr Hauptmann, Bauer turns. Major Steinhoff has entered the room. The Geschwader Commodore looks exhausted. He flew 3 combat sorties yesterday. Once during the P-38 attack and twice more during the night bombing. Major, I wanted to report personally, Steinhoff says. I claimed 3 P-38 Lightnings during the morning attack. Congratulations. Steinhoff doesn't smile. It wasn't enough. For every Lightning I shot down, 10 more completed their attacks. He walks to the window and looks out at the damaged airfield. I've been fighting P-38 since North Africa, Steinhoff continues. I thought I understood them. Thought we had their measure. He pauses. I was wrong. How so? The Lightning has qualities we dismissed. Its acceleration is extraordinary. Far better than our fighters. Its speed is exceptional. Its range is unmatched. And pilots who understand how to use these qualities are very difficult to shoot down. Steinhoff turns from the window. We claimed the P-38 was easy prey. We were fooling ourselves. We were counting as victories aircraft that were simply using emergency power to escape. We see smoke from their engines and think we've destroyed them. Meanwhile, they land safely back at base. Bauer says nothing. And the reconnaissance variant, Steinhoff adds. We thought they were harmless because they carried no guns. But they carried something more dangerous. Cameras. Intelligence. Information. Information is useless without action. Bauer says. But they took action. Less than 24 hours after photographing us, they attacked. That's not useless. That's devastatingly effective. Steinhoff moves toward the door, then stops. I've sent a report to the General Staff. I recommended that all P-38s be treated as high-priority targets, especially reconnaissance variants. Will they listen? They will now. The lessons learned at Foggia ripple through the Luftwaffe. Within days, new standing orders are issued. All P-38 reconnaissance aircraft are to be intercepted at maximum effort. All photo reconnaissance missions over Germany-held territory are to be met with fighter opposition. The Germans begin dispersing aircraft more carefully. Camouflage nets become standard. Decoy aircraft are placed to draw attacks away from real assets. But it's reactive, defensive. The Americans have seized the initiative. And the reconnaissance flights continue. September 18, 1943. 3 weeks after the first Foggia raid, Lieutenant Colonel McNichol leads another attack on the Foggia airfields. This time the Germans are ready. Fighters scramble. Flak is heavier. The element of surprise is gone, but the Lightnings still achieve their objective. 16 more aircraft destroyed. The 97th Fighter Squadron claims 2 unidentified single-engine fighters. The 96th destroys a Ju-88. The 95th adds its own kills. The pattern is established: reconnaissance flights, identify targets, fighter bombers, attack heavy bombers, follow up. The Germans try to adapt. They try to intercept the reconnaissance aircraft. They try to hide their assets. But the P-38s keep coming. Throughout late 1943 and into 1944, photo reconnaissance becomes the foundation of Allied air operations. Every major bombing raid is preceded by reconnaissance flights, sometimes days before, sometimes hours before. Ploesti oil refineries in Romania, photographed before each attack. Vienna aircraft factories, photographed, attacked, photographed again to assess damage. Marshalling yards across Eastern Europe, photographed to identify rail traffic, then bombed to destroy it. German airfields in Italy, France, and the Balkans, all photographed, all attacked. The pattern is relentless, and the pilots flying these missions face extraordinary danger. June 5, 1943. Over New Britain Pacific Theater, First Lieutenant Fred Hargesheimer pilots his F-5A photo reconnaissance Lightning over Japanese-held territory. His mission: photograph enemy installations at Rabaul. Has 30 minutes into his photo run when a Kawasaki Ki-45 fighter appears on his tail. Hargesheimer has no guns. His only option is speed. He firewalls the throttles. The Lightning accelerates, but so does the Ki-45. Shells hammer into Hargesheimer's aircraft. The right engine takes multiple hits. The boom shreds. The engine seizes. Hargesheimer feathers the right propeller and pushes the left engine to maximum power. The Lightning is barely controllable, but it's still flying. More shells. These hit the left boom. Hydraulic fluid sprays across the canopy. Hargesheimer knows he's not making it home. He turns toward the jungle below and prepares to bail out. The next 31 days will be the longest of his life. Hargesheimer will wander through the New Britain jungle, evading Japanese patrols, surviving on whatever he can find. Local villagers will discover him emaciated and delirious, and hide him from the Japanese for 6 months. Finally, Australian commandos will retrieve him. Hargesheimer will return to duty. And hell fly again, because the reconnaissance missions are too important to stop. The price is high, not just in the Pacific but in Europe too. Photo reconnaissance pilots face Me-262 jets over Germany, W-190s over France, Bf-109s over Italy. Some make it home, some don't, but the photographs keep coming. November 1943. The 82nd Fighter Group begins flying escort missions for 15th Air Force F-5 photo reconnaissance Lightnings, nicknamed Photo Freddies by the pilots. These missions are different from bomber escorts. The F-5s fly alone at high altitude, following precise routes to photograph specific targets. They're a sitting ducks for interceptors. The 82nd's job is to keep them alive. On one mission, Me-262 jets appear. The German jets are too fast for the P-38 escorts to catch, but the escorts can position themselves between the Me-262s and the Photo Freddies. The jets make several passes. The P-38 escorts damage 4 Me-262s and 1 Bf-109. The Photo Freddy completes its mission and returns safely. 4 damaged jets and 1 damaged Messerschmitt in exchange for a set of photographs. Worth it. October 29, 1943. Over Austria. A 95th Fighter Squadron pilot scores one of the strangest victories of the war. Hes escorting a Photo Freddy when a lone P-51 Mustang appears and opens fire on the reconnaissance aircraft. The P-38 pilot immediately recognizes something is wrong. American P-51s don't attack American photo recon planes. He positions himself behind the Mustang and examines it carefully. The markings look right, but the behavior is wrong. He fires a warning burst. The Mustang doesn't break off. Instead, it turns toward the P-38 aggressively. Captured aircraft. Has to be. The P-38 pilot doesn't hesitate. He closes to short range and opens fire. The Mustang's left wing separates from the fuselage. The aircraft spins into the clouds below. Later investigation confirms it an early model P-51, captured by the Germans, and flown by a Luftwaffe pilot. The Photo Freddy completes its mission. The reconnaissance war is fought in every theater. Over the Pacific, F-4 and F-5 Lightnings photograph Japanese bases. Some pilots like Captain Alex Gary become legends. Gary outmaneuvers Japanese fighters over Wewak with such skill that Hez credited with a probable kill despite having no guns. Lieutenant Homer Taylor does the same over Rabaul. Another unarmed photo reconnaissance pilot, another probable victory through pure flying skill. These aren't flukes. They're survival. When you're flying alone unarmed over enemy territory, survival requires perfection. One mistake means death. The pilots who fly these missions understand this. They fly anyway. Karl Polivka, the pioneer of P-38 photo reconnaissance, continues flying throughout 1943 and into 1944. He transfers from the Pacific to Italy, where he flies photo missions over German positions. Ploesti, Vienna, Budapest, Munich. Every mission is dangerous. Every landing is a victory. Polivka will survive the war. He'll be recognized as the premier American photo reconnaissance ace. Not for aircraft shot down, but for missions completed. For intelligence gathered. For photographs taken. Hundreds of missions. Thousands of photographs. Every one of them used to plan attacks. Every one of them saving Allied lives by providing accurate intelligence. The impact of photo reconnaissance on World War II cannot be overstated. Before the war, military planning relied on intelligence reports, spy networks, and often unreliable information. Commanders made decisions based on estimates and guesses. Photo reconnaissance changed everything. Now commanders could see the target before attacking it. They could count aircraft, identify types, locate flak batteries, find vulnerabilities. The Foggia raid on August 25, 1943 was the perfect example. One unarmed F-4 Lightning photographed 7 airfields in one mission. Less than 24 hours later, 150 P-38 fighters attacked those exact locations with devastating precision. 34 aircraft destroyed immediately. Over 100 destroyed or damaged when heavy bombers followed up. And all of it made possible by reconnaissance photographs. But the cost was real. Photo reconnaissance aircraft had lower loss rates than bombers. They were faster, more maneuverable, and usually flew alone to avoid detection. But lower loss rate doesn't mean safe. Pilots were shot down, captured, killed. First Lieutenant Fred Hargesheimer spent 31 days in the New Britain jungle after being shot down. Lieutenant Conger was transferred to the 154th Weather Reconnaissance Squadron after speaking out about dangerous mission planning. He flew 18 more P-38 missions before completing his tour. And there were others. Names in mission reports. Photographs of pilots who never came home. Aircraft that left on reconnaissance missions and never returned. Every photograph had a cost, but the photographs kept coming. The Germans eventually adapted. By late 1943, reconnaissance aircraft were priority targets. Standing orders required all available fighters to intercept them. Aircraft dispersion improved. Camouflage became standard. Decoy aircraft were placed to waste American ordnance on fake targets. Photo interpreters learned to identify the decoys. They studied shadow angles, track patterns, maintenance activity. Real aircraft showed signs of use. Decoys didn't. The intelligence war became more sophisticated on both sides. But the Americans maintained the advantage. They had more aircraft, more pilots, more resources, and they had the P-38 Lightning, an aircraft with the range, speed, and altitude capability to fly anywhere in Europe or the Pacific and return safely. The reconnaissance missions continued until the last days of the war. In Europe, F-5 Lightnings photographed the Rhine crossings. They documented the retreat of German forces. They provided bomb damage assessment after every major raid. In the Pacific, photo Recon P-38s mapped every Japanese-held island before invasion. They identified coastal defenses, troop concentrations, supply dumps. Iwo Jima was photographed dozens of times before the Marines landed. Okinawa was mapped in extraordinary detail. The Philippines, New Guinea, every island, all photographed, all mapped, all analyzed, and then attacked with precision based on that intelligence. The numbers tell part of the story. The 8th Photo Reconnaissance Squadron flew thousands of missions during the war. Hundreds of pilots rotated through the unit. Most completed their tours. Some didn't. The 82nd Fighter Group, which conducted the Foggia raid, completed over 400 combat missions during the war. It earned 2 distinguished unit citations. Its pilots claimed hundreds of enemy aircraft destroyed both in the air and on the ground. But numbers don't capture the human element. Lieutenant Colonel George McNichol, who led the Foggia raid, survived the war. He returned to the United States with the rank of colonel and multiple decorations for valor. First Lieutenant Tom Hodgson, who flew his 50th mission during the Foggia raid, completed his tour and went home. He would return for a second tour in early 1944, this time flying P-38Ls. Might. P-38 mission. 2 kills. Perfect ending to a perfect tour. Second Lieutenant Urban Stahl, who destroyed 4 Ju-88 bombers in one pass, completed his tour in early 1944. He returned home to Wisconsin, where he resumed working in his father's hardware store. He rarely talked about the war, but sometimes late at night he'd think about those 4 Ju-88s. 4 aircraft that would never bomb Allied soldiers. 4 crews that wouldn't be killing Americans. Worth it. First Lieutenant Lee Solem, who belly-landed his damaged P-38 in Sicily on his 50th mission, went home in September 1943. Final score: 3 destroyed, 1 probable, and 4 damaged in the air. Plus 1 Ju-52 destroyed on the ground. Had survived 50 missions. The odds said he shouldn't have, but he did. And Karl Pop Polifka, the pioneer who proved that unarmed aircraft flown by brave pilots could gather intelligence no spy network could match. He flew until the war ended. Mission after mission. Photograph after photograph. When asked about his service, Polifka never claimed to be a hero. He was just a pilot doing his job. But the commanders who used his photographs knew better. Every bomb that hit its target started with reconnaissance. Every successful mission started with intelligence. Every photograph taken by pilots like Polifka saved lives, both by identifying targets and by revealing what not to bomb. The Germans learned their lesson at Foggia. But by the time they learned it, the pattern was established. All through late 1943 and 1944 and into 1945, the same sequence repeated: reconnaissance aircraft photograph the target. Intelligence officers analyze the photographs. Attack aircraft strike with precision. Heavy bombers follow up. Photo reconnaissance aircraft return to assess damage. And the cycle repeats. Let's return to where we started. August 24, 1943. 27,000 feet above Foggia. Oberleutnant Heinrich Müller watches the unarmed P-38 cruise past. He considers attacking. decides against it. Just another reconnaissance flight, he mutters. He returns to his patrol. The next morning, Mueller will scramble his Bf-109 when he hears the sound of engines approaching from the south. Hell see the P-38s coming, wave after wave of them. Hell understand too late what that reconnaissance flight meant. Hell engage, hell fight, and hell watch helplessly as American fighters destroy aircraft after aircraft on the ground below. Some lessons are learned through experience. The Luftwaffe learned that reconnaissance flights aren't harmless. They learned that the camera is as dangerous as the bomb. They learned that intelligence wins wars. But they learned too late. The final irony? Kurt Bühligen, the ace who claimed the P-38 was the easiest Allied fighter to down, credited with 13 Lightning kills. Franz Schiess, who claimed an astonishing 17 P-38s destroyed. How many of those claims were actually confirmed? How many were Lightnings belching smoke while escaping at full throttle? How many were pilots who survived to fly again? We'll never know. But we do know this: the P-38 pilots kept flying. The reconnaissance missions continued. The photographs kept coming. And the bombers arrived the next morning. Every time. Today, the Fallujah raid is studied at military academies as a textbook example of intelligence-driven operations. One reconnaissance flight. One set of photographs. One day of preparation. One devastating attack. 34 aircraft destroyed immediately. Over 100 total when heavy bombers followed up. 5 American aircraft lost. 3 pilots killed. A 20-to-1 exchange ratio. All because someone understood that information is power. All because pilots were brave enough to fly unarmed into enemy territory. All because intelligence officers turned photographs into actionable data. All because commanders acted decisively on that intelligence. The P-38 Lightning served in every theater of World War II. It shot down more Japanese aircraft than any other fighter. It flew longer-range missions than any other American fighter. It pioneered the fighter-bomber role. But perhaps its greatest contribution was the one most overlooked: the unarmed F-4 and F-5 variants. The reconnaissance aircraft. The Lightnings without guns. The ones the Germans mocked. The ones they thought were harmless. Those aircraft flown by pilots whose names rarely appear in history books provided the intelligence that won the war. They photographed every major target before it was bombed. They mapped every invasion beach before troops landed. They documented every enemy position before it was attacked. And they did it alone, unarmed, deep in enemy territory with nothing to protect them but speed and altitude and courage. The Germans mocked the reconnaissance flights. Until the bombers arrived the next morning. Then, they understood. Information is power. Intelligence wins wars. And the camera is as dangerous as the bomb. The 8th Photo Reconnaissance Squadron, over 1,000 combat missions flown during World War II. The 82nd Fighter Group, 402 combat missions. 2 distinguished unit citations. Hundreds of enemy aircraft destroyed. F-4 and F-5 Lightning photo reconnaissance variants. Thousands produced. Flown in every theater. Fallujah raid, August 25, 1943. 100 total destroyed or damaged. 5 American aircraft lost. Reconnaissance flights over enemy territory, countless. Every major operation in every theater started with photographs. Lives saved by accurate intelligence. Incalculable. The lesson learned: never underestimate the pilot without guns. He's the one who tells everyone else where to shoot.